Thank you for downloading this podcast from the British Theatre Guide. For more information about British Theatre Guide, please visit britishtheatreguide.info. Owen O'Neill is an Irish writer, actor and stand-up comedian who has become known particularly on the Edinburgh Fringe for his one-man plays, which have earned him 2 Fringe Firsts from the Scotsman newspaper and a number of other awards. This year he has written a 2-hander called Shaving the Dead, in which he will not perform, but it will be directed by Fringe regular Guy Masterson, with whom he has previously collaborated on a number of major projects, including 12 Angry Men, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which transferred to the West End starring Christian Slater, and The Odd Couple. I spoke to Owen just after the play opened, and I asked him to explain what the play is about and where it began.
Well, I've written a 2-hander called Shaving the Dead. It started life about 4 years ago, and it was called Two Dead Guys, and it was about 2 guys who get drunk and they... It opens up in a morgue, the original play, and the 2 guys are in shrouds, and they don't know how they got there. They don't know if they're dead or not. But I couldn't find an ending to it. I wasn't really happy with the ending. So then, about a year later, I was at the traffic lights, and I'm sitting at the traffic lights, and this hearse came up beside me at the traffic lights. And the 2 undertakers in the hearse were having a raging argument, shouting and screaming at each other. And I thought, this is really intriguing. And then they just sped off. And I thought, okay, all right, that's a good idea. 2 undertakers who are arguing with each other. And that's where the idea came from. And so that's what the play is now about. It's about, 2 undertakers. And there is a coffin, which is a sort of strange coffin. And it turns out that it's sort of hard for me to explain it because I don't want to give it away.
Yeah.
But the coffin isn't what it seems, let's say.
Right.
And the Grim Reaper is around the place as well. So it's a little bit of a sort of surreal kind of black, dark comedy.
Not straightforward naturalism then.
No, not at all, no. Although the 2 actors are playing it straight, which is, obviously, it's directed by Guy Masterson.
Of course, yeah.
And we got them to play it sort of completely straight. But they're great. The actors are really good. I'm really pleased with them.
Obviously a very dark piece, but I noticed in the publicity it's described as a Beckettian, which as an Irish writer, I don't suppose you'd use that term lightly.
That wasn't my idea. I supposed to use that term, to be honest. You know what publicity is like.
Yes.
They put these things on posters and you think, oh, no, come on, I'm not going to, compare myself to Samuel Beckett. I mean, I think if you do that, you're sort of, on for a hiding to nothing.
Yeah.
So, no, I wouldn't describe it as that. I mean, if you get, 2 men on stage in black suits and it's about death, then people are going to go, oh, it's Beckett or it's Pinter. But, it isn't really, I don't think,
yeah.
To be honest.
So you've got 2 actors in this, which is twice as many as you often use in your plays.
Yes, of course, because I usually can't afford anybody. Usually that's why I do everything myself. Usually my plays are autobiographical for the most part.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, and but I thought I ran out of sort of everything to talk about so far in my life. For the last 25 years, I've been using my life as a sort of a template for plays, but I just thought this year I would just try and write a play with 2 other actors in it, and just to see how that goes. And at the moment, audiences are responding really well. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah. And you mentioned you've got Guy Masterson directing, who's celebrating his 26th year at the Fringe, and you've had quite a long relationship with Guy yourself, haven't you? I
have, yes. No, I first met Guy in 1997 when I was doing a play up here called Off My Face about alcoholism, and he came to see that, and I think he wrote me a nice review, and then we did over the years, we've done 12 Angry Men with the 12 comedians, which he directed, and we did The Odd Couple and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he redirected me in Absolution, which was another play I did about priests and paedophilia.
Yeah.
Another, a laugh a minute play. And so, so I've known Guy for, 20 years now, I guess, yeah.
And he's somebody who's written and performed a lot of one-man plays himself. So does that help, do you think?
It does help because he knows what I need, and if you've been there and you've done it, then you know what you have to do, and So no, he does know. Yes, so it's that's always good.
It strikes me as a one-man show. It seemed like a fairly lonely life, especially touring round. I suppose you've got a director in the rehearsal room with you, but generally you're just on your own, aren't you? Yeah, you're just on your own. But I don't really, I think that's okay with me. I like that because if you make a mistake, nobody knows. Yeah. You can just change it. Whereas if you're with another actor, then you have to be on your guard all the time. Plus, if I feel I want to change it, I want to change the ending or change anything, and then I can just change it. So the freedom is great if you're just on your own. Yeah. Whereas if you're with a couple of other actors, then you have to, make sure that they're okay with it and, all of that. I like that freedom, really, of the one-man show, to be honest. I suppose it's a natural progression from the stand-up. There's a stand-up comic that I know, you probably know him yourself, Justin Morehouse, who's, I know from around
Justin,
here.
Yeah.
I was talking to him not long ago, and he was saying, because he normally does a podcast where he talks to people while he's on tour. And he said
I see, right.
He hadn't done it for a while because he didn't meet anybody, because he was just touring the same show. So it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? You're just on your own. You can change things if you want, but it's a bit of a lonely life in a sense.
It can be lonely, yes. It can be, but then I'm quite happy in my own company, to be honest. I don't really mind. And of course, I don't go on tour for a long time. I'm only on tour for maybe 2 weeks at a time. I don't go like off on like a long tour. So it's okay. I don't really mind it, to be honest.
Do you think your more serious plays, well, there's usually comedy involved, but do you think your plays are related to your stand-up in any way? Because they're both sort of autobiographical, they're both somebody standing up on stage talking?
Yeah, not really. I tend to, my stand-up, I only do like an sort of, 20 minutes.
Right.
With usually in the clubs. And it's usually quick fire. It's usually quick, gags, and you have to keep the audience on their toes, and it's usually quicker. But whereas with the one-man shows, it's sort of, I can relax a little bit more, and I can say what I want to say in a more creative way, if you like.
Yeah.
And so I do prefer the one-man shows really than to, doing. I don't really do it that much these days. I don't really do, stand up a lot these days, to be honest. I mostly I tour my one-man shows around the place. Occasionally I'll do it, and I like it. Because it's quick.
Yeah.
You get the reaction right away, which is good.
Yeah. Do you find that sort of a relaxation between the more serious pieces?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But I read that you actually began originally as a poet, and that you were on Saturday Live back in the 80s, which I used to love. I was way back then, and actually, I did my first TV in '86. Right.
It was a show called Whatever You Want.
Right.
It was on Channel 4, and it was hosted by Keith Allen.
Ah, right.
And he hosted it in the nude. Hey. And that was the first thing I ever did. I read a poem on there.
Yeah.
And then I think it was actually before that. It was actually before '86, I think. Yeah. And then I did, Saturday Live. I did that, but I didn't. To be honest, I really enjoy it. To be honest, because I got to the studio. The TV studios at sort of 11 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't go on stage until 10:30 at night. It was a whole day to do I don't think I was only on screen for 5 minutes. So it wasn't a great experience, to be honest. Yeah. You can't say what you want to say. You have to do this and that and sit down here and do all these things. And in those days, I don't think that comedy was. I don't think they did it properly on TV. Right. In those days, to be honest, it was all too sort of quick. like the live at the Apollo now is great.
Yeah.
Because they know how to do it, and they give every comedian a bit of time, to do their stuff. Whereas in the old days, it was all really sort of, okay, off and on, like a conveyor belt. I don't think it had as much impact as these days.
Yeah, like at the Royal Variety performance when everybody got about 3 minutes, didn't they?
Exactly, yeah, and you can't even remember, who was on it.
No.
Like the next day, they go, were you on that last night? Yeah.
But you moved on from being a poet to being a stand-up, and that's according to Wikipedia. I know it's not entirely reliable, but your
that's true.
Your early comic influences were people like W.C. Fields and Laurel and Hardy and Richard Pryor, which are very different.
Well, they asked me, who made me laugh initially, who can I remember, making me laugh, and of course I remember Laurel and Hardy when I was a child, making me laugh so much. And then as I got sort of older in my late sort of teens, sort of early teens, I remember seeing a W.C. Fields, and I just thought he was the funniest thing ever. Yeah, it was so underplayed. So I loved him. He made me laugh. Yeah. And then when I got into my sort of early 20s, I discovered Richard Pryor, and I just thought, my God, this guy is talking about real stuff. Yeah. Whereas everybody else was doing gags. Yeah. And I thought, no, but he's talking about his life. He's talking about his family. He's talking about his drug abuse. He's talking about all of this stuff. And that was a big influence to me. And I thought, my God, you can make jokes about this stuff. Yeah. So that was a real influence. Yeah. Do you think your work, your stand-up and your plays are particularly Irish? Do you think that your Irish background is... I think, yeah. I mean, I think the Irishness is there, absolutely. And I think because of my upbringing, I mean, I come from a big family. There's 12 of us, and like when I was growing up in those days, there was an awful lot of, characters in the small town where I lived, and there was an awful lot of craziness, and then, there was the Troubles and all of that. And you can't, being brought up in all of that, obviously, had an influence on my work, Yeah. And so, yes, absolutely. It influenced sort of everything, really, to be honest.
Yeah, because some of the greatest supposedly British playwrights throughout history have actually been Irish, like Oscar Wilde and Beckett, of course, and Shaw. Yeah. They tend to be labelled as British playwrights, but their Irishness doesn't seem to come out quite the same, does it, as a modern Irish playwright?
No, that's true. I think they were more, like with, Beckett, I mean, he wrote in French, for instance. Yes. He wrote all the stuff in French, and then it was, and then they moved away as well. Joyce went to Switzerland, and, he went to France. Beckett went to France, and Shaw was very much in England a lot of the time. And all his plays were sort of influenced by that. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it was only into the late, I suppose, Brendan Behan, I suppose, was the first one who really began to talk about, and of course O'Casey was more Irish. But yeah, no, that's true. Yes, yeah.
And now you've got people like Martin McDonagh, who doesn't sound that Irish himself, but his characters are very Irish, aren't they?
Yeah, well, a lot of his plays are about Ireland, but I think his dad, I don't know if his dad was Irish. Yeah. First, generation Irish, I think. But I think him and his brother were, brought up in England. Yeah. Yeah, with that sort of influence, yeah.
Yeah. So, this play is running throughout the whole of August. Is it planned to have a life after Edinburgh?
Well, I hope so. I mean, that's always a hope. But you never know. It depends. But that's that's the plan. Like maybe to get on to other places. But that relies on how it goes down here. First of all, Yeah. But I'm hopeful. At the moment, the audiences are liking it, which is a good sign. Yeah. And there hasn't been any reviews yet, but so we'll see. But you never know with Edinburgh. It's a brutal place.
It is, yes.
It's brutal. the audiences can love it, they can be laughing, and you think, oh, this is fantastic. And then, you get like a 2-star review from a reviewer who says, everybody around me was laughing, but I didn't think it was very good. It left me cold, and all that sort of thing, and you think, well, but that's the way it is. You can't, when you're up in Edinburgh, like, you put your head above the parapet every single time. So,
yeah,
that's the nature of the beast.
What's your own relationship with the reviewers? Because I know Guy often speaks he often speaks out quite strongly against the star ratings, but you need there are armies of reviewers up in Edinburgh, of course, every year. You need the reviews, you need those slogans for the poster and all that, don't you?
Unfortunately, they do matter, to get the 4 and 5 star reviews can help you. But no, I think these days it's becoming less and less because everybody is a reviewer as far as I can see. You've got the internet, and you've got blogs, and you've got people that, you've got like, Fringe Review 4 and Fringe Review 12 and, John from here and there. And you just think, oh my God, this is so I try not to take it too seriously, really, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I think if you have a good piece of work and the audience are laughing at it, then I think it has a life, despite the reviews, I think.
Yeah.
If it works on stage and the audience are there and they're laughing, well, that's all you need, really.
Yeah.
And if the audience come out and say that was great, I really enjoyed that, and if the majority of the people in the room are like that, then I think you don't have to worry, really.
Yeah.
I think up here you get obsessed about reviews and obsessed about the star thing, and I tend to give that just, I don't really take that, I don't really care about that, to be honest.
I suppose I've heard performers. I know performers do read reviews, despite what a lot of them say, because a lot of them tweet about my reviews, good or bad. But I've heard some performers say, "Well, what do I do with that review? Do I completely change my performance if they picked up on something, or do it? You've still got to go on stage night after night, whatever they say."
Yeah. Well, I have in the past. I've had some good constructive reviews.
Yeah.
I remember I did a one-man show, and the reviewer said O'Neill is too far away from all of his props. And I thought, he's absolutely right. Why? Because it was a big stage. I was, doing the traverse.
Yeah.
And I thought, he's absolutely right. I'll have that chair over here, and I'll put this over here, and also he said O'Neill has 2 endings, and he doesn't. I need the last ending. It should end there. I thought he's absolutely right. So I changed it.
Yeah.
And so that was really good. But that doesn't happen all that often, I have to say. But I do. In the past, when I've had a good review and it's like a constructive review, you think, actually he's right about that.
Yeah.
So they do help occasionally.
So what else have you got lined up after this then?
Well, I'm thinking of writing. I can't really tell you about this, but it's a big project. It's a big project, and it's. I'm trying to get it off the ground maybe for next year, and it's based on a film, but it's a stage play based on a film. So I'm gonna. That's my next big project,
right? Which
I can't really tell you about.
Okay.
And I have a screenplay in the works as well.
Right.
Which is almost there. We're just beginning to tweak it, and we're trying to get investors and stuff. And I have a producer on there and a director, and it's all sort of beginning to move forward in a good way. So hopefully by next year I might have a screenplay. So fingers crossed.
Try to cover every possible area. One thing I haven't asked you about that I meant to ask you about actually is the comedians theatre, because you did that with 12 Angry Men.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, you had this idea of putting together comedians, and it actually worked for that production. It worked really well, and it's worked for one or two others where comedians who happen to be at the Fringe are performing, and some of them are actually really good actors, aren't they? So how did that come about?
They are. Well, when we did 12 Angry Men, obviously all the people I knew were comedians.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I wonder who could play that. I think he could do that, but then he could do that, and I'll ask him to do that. And when I asked everybody, myself and Guy, when I asked them, they just went, 12 Angry Men were comedians. Yes, absolutely. Everybody went, absolutely. So we got everybody on board, really quickly. And it was a hit, 12 Angry Men. I mean, I think we did a great job on that. And then afterwards we did, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes.
Although we had, they weren't all comedians in that, because we went to the West End with it, and it had, Christian Slater in it and Francis Barber.
Yeah.
But the rest of us were like, the inmates were all comedians. And so that worked really well. So, no, I think they are good actors, comedians. Yeah, I mean, I think they really are. So that was really good fun to do.
That was Owen O'Neill talking about his new play, Shaving the Dead, directed by Guy Masterson, which will be at Assembly George Square Studio 2 in Edinburgh until the 25th of August 2019. For more information about the festival, see assemblyfestival.com or www.edfringe.com. For Guy Masterson's production company, see theatretoursinternational.com, or for Owen O'Neill himself, see oweno'neill.co.uk. You've been listening to a podcast from British Theatre Guide. For more information, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.